2006 was a pretty decent year in music. There were some new bands which were emerging, and I think really 2006 was the last decent year of the noughties. I think after then, bands took quite a decline. There wasn't really much going on in 2007 and onwards. Kind of like it picked up, I guess, after 2007, but it took like an almighty sort of fall, you know. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened after 2006. Maybe the intervention of Simon Cowell's X Factor Machine and these other kind of TV influences, I think, affected like the industry regarding bands. I think promoters of bands started to take other interest in single artists because they're like easier to promote, they're easy to handle, you know, as bands are notoriously difficult. And I think music just seemed to change after 2006. Not necessarily for the better. It became a lot more manufactured music was, you know, ever so present. Like really sort of dominating like the charts, you know, after this year. So I think 2006 was kind of like the last decent year. I really do. So let's go into a few honourable mentions. This Morrissey, ringleader of the Tormentors. Here's a few honourable mentions. Some you'll be surprised aren't in the top 10. Muse, Black Holes and Revelations. Evanescence, The Open Door. Embrace, This New Day. The Arctic Monkeys, whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not. Yes, didn't even make the top 10, this one. I think this was the year they started. Well, started to become big anyway. Whether this is their debut or not, I don't know, but could well be. I know they sort of really, you know, came on the scene at this time, so this could well be their first or one of their earliest albums. The Zootons, Tired of Hanging Around. Escape the Fate, Dying is Your Latest Fashion. 07, The Garden. So, yeah, a few honourable mentions. Going into my top 10. Let's get it started with The Killers, Sam's Town. Pretty good album of The Killers, actually. But not as good as Hot Fuzz, must admit. It's good, but it's just not as good as that album. Notable hits, of course, When You're Young and Bones and Read My Mind. So yes, Sam's Town by The Killers. A pretty good album by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Stadium Arcadium. But not as good as By the Way album, which came out I think before it. But still a good solid album. 2 CDs, full of tracks. It's a pretty like epic kind of album, really. I mean, 28 songs and 2 CDs, featuring Danny California and Tell Me Baby. So yes, Red Hot Chilies. Number 8, Clear Lake Amber. Yeah, Clear Lake Amber, Brighton band, I believe, quite local to me. Pretty solid album, must admit. Just sort of came out of nowhere. So yeah. 7th place, Orson, Bright Idea. No Tomorrow being the number 1 single off this album. So yes. So 6th place goes to a favourite of mine, Tom Petty. Him and other band members formed the original band, the band they were before they became Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Mudcrutch, and released this album pretty much with the original lineup. obviously features Mike Campbell, and of course others as well, who were involved in the Mudcrutch band. Getting anything like early Mudcrutch is near enough impossible. I mean, there's like a few singles floating around on vinyl, like 7-inch singles, but they cost quite a bit to get. And it's a shame they can't compile something like digitally, like on a disc. So this is like the nearest thing we're going to get really to that band. Of course, this came out years and years down the line, after sort of Mudcrutch came and went. So this is really the only thing we can really get on Mudcrutch digitally. Just a shame that it's like so long ago, like when they did start. But yeah, if we could get to hear any kind of like Mudcrutch sound of how maybe they would have sound before they became the Heartbreakers, this I suppose would have been it. But of course, this is like 30-40 years later. So there you go. Anyway, standout track on here, Scare Easy. It's brilliant. So yeah, good solid album. Fifth spot, Razorlight. Of course, America and In the Morning being massive hits over here in the UK. So yes, well deserved of fifth spot. Good album. Another really good album, Kasabian Empire. Loads of decent tunes on here. I'm not sure what were hits and what weren't. But there's a string of good tunes on here. Empire, Shoot the Runner. We got British Legion, The Doberman, Stuntman, 8, Last Trip. It's just a solid album. Really good. Kasabian. Third spot, Keane, Under the Iron Sea. Must admit, considering how I rated like Hopes and Fears, I was a bit disappointed in this album. But the standout track, which really drove me to buy this, was Nothing in My Way. I thought that was probably their best song they recorded out of their whole library. I think that's probably one of the, if not the best songs they've done. Standout track, Crystal Ball as well, of course. It's good. It's very like instrumental, probably a bit too much in places. It can kind of drag on. But nonetheless, it's in my third spot. I do like this album. I'm not saying that it's a bad album. It's just nowhere as good as their previous one. But that was what, 2004, I think. That was a pretty solid year for albums. So it's hard to compete. Once like an artist, a band rather, like does their best work, or their best album, it's very hard to reach those kind of levels again. So yeah, this kind of marked the decline of Keane, sort of this album and onwards. But this was, don't get me wrong, this was pretty successful. A lot of people buying this album, so yeah, worthy of third spot, despite my criticisms. Number 2, Fratellis, Costello Music. Great album. It's a great album. It's solid from front to back, but the standout tracks, of course, Chelsea Dagger and Whistle for the Choir. It's just that's an absolutely brilliant song, Whistle for the Choir. I love it. I absolutely love that song. And of course, Chelsea Dagger is brilliant as well. And yeah, good album. If you haven't got this, I highly recommend you pick this one up, should you find it. for like £1 in a charity shop, whatever, and you haven't got it. Very worthy purchase. But my number one, I love this band. I was working self-employed for a brief moment in that year, 2005, 2006, and I was listening a lot to the radio, and this band just sort of came on, and they're putting out hit after hit and hit. I just thought, I love this band. This band is brilliant. It's, I think it's about the time Razorlight was like number one. Like they never had, this band was still releasing like singles during that time. And I thought they were better than Razorlight. These hits are excellent. They really are. And it's not just one or two, there's a string of them. And that is The Feeling, 12 Stops and Home. I believe they're a Horsham band. Very local to me. I know Horsham town very well. My dad was born there. And I spent a lot of my young years over there, going to watch the football, Horsham FC, in the old stadium, which isn't there anymore. And yes, going there for weekends and hanging out with friends and that over in Horsham. I only lived a few miles away from Horsham at that time in the early, late, yeah, sort of like when I was born, 84 to 93, I moved. So yes, I was like 8 years old when we moved from the Horsham area. But yeah, lovely town, Horsham. But anyway, going off track here. The tracks, I Want You Now, Never Be Lonely, I think was a hit. It was a great hit, actually. Feel My Little World, great song. Love It When You Call. I mean, it's solid. I mean, there's four hits right there. There might be another one as well, I think. I'm not sure now. But yeah, good album. And this came out of a time when I needed this. I was actually, in my job, I was really struggling, and this was a bit of a reprieve, this band, for me, hearing this band on the radio. It brought a certain amount of enjoyment, at a time which was extremely difficult. So I'm very grateful for this album when it came out, and I love the band. I must admit, I love the band, and I bought their other albums as well. And that is basically it. I'm rambling a bit, I know, but yeah, 2006, pretty decent year. And I do think after then, music just seemed to, bands particularly, just kind of dropped, disappeared. As going into 2007, it's not easy to put this together. The next video, it's quite dry. I've had to sort of do a bit of research and really give it some thought of how I'm going to do 2007. But it does pick up from there on in. So all is not lost. We do have other bands out there. I'll be doing my best to keep doing this series for a few more years into the future, at least. Try and get to the end of the noughties, at least, depending how popular these videos are. So without further ado, then I better get cracking with that. Until then, see you very shortly for my next one. Bye for now.